Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Davis, and welcome to another edition of Moments with MindLeaps, our Friday series where I have the pleasure of speaking with artists, designers, creatives, researchers, tremendous people from around the world who are taking on interesting projects and using creative ways to improve their communities, both at home and abroad. It's one of my favorite things to do every week is speak with our guests. And this week is going to be especially great because we're welcoming Joshua Schulman to Moments with MindLeaps. Joshua has a Bachelor of Arts in Music and Drama and History, and he has a Master's of Arts in Lighting Design. So both with his degree as a BA and an MFA, he has this very interesting arts background, and then he combines that with project management skills and a wide variety of other skills to really become a very unique creative, living and leading in much of the world based at home in Philadelphia. Joshua is especially close to me and MindLeaps because he's also been to our projects in Rwanda and has had the chance to work with our teams on the ground in Africa as well. And I see so many of our friends joining. Hello, Bashir. Hello, Olivier. Omar. Thanks so much, everybody, for being with us. And I welcome Josh. As I was saying, hi, Josh.
Hello.
Josh, I was just saying to our guests that you have a very eclectic background with a BA in history and drama and an MFA in lighting design. And then you've built this entire career as a project manager for so many different arts companies in Philadelphia, and then found yourself randomly in Rwanda at some point.
I mean, yes, yeah. Variety is the spice of life, right?
And since I know you're cooking, I know that that's actually a true statement when you say it.
Yes, very much so.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. I hope I'm not stealing you away from a really busy COVID schedule.
No. Today is light, unfortunately, but
the new line I heard today in one of my Zoom meetings is like, "Sorry, I'm late. I was stuck in traffic." Oh, look at all my corny Zoom jokes. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us. Josh, what's really interesting to our guests who are joining us from Rwanda and North Macedonia and around the world is to hear how the arts got part of your DNA, part of your, I don't know if it's from your upbringing or what, that led you to have a very diverse career, but there's always this artist both inside and outside that's driving it. Tell us about that. Give us your secret.
So I started doing theater when I was in high school, actually, and I've never enjoyed being a performer personally. It's not my lighting design teacher. So being in front of the camera, like, to be honest, is not my strong suit, but I've always enjoyed problem solving and sort of puzzle building. And in that regard, I became a stage designer. And then when I discovered lighting design, I was like, well, this is brilliant because I can't draw to save my life.
Really?
No, not at all. I can't draw a straight line to save my life. I mean, with a computer, it's very easy, but by hand, I'm terrible. And as I've had many professors tell me over the years, my handwriting is atrocious. So like that just wasn't gonna happen. But in lighting, you don't need to do any of that. You just draw it all with a computer. And I was like, well, this is great. And the thing that I enjoyed about it was how fast paced it was.
Oh,
So a big part of it for me was I have always had like a short attention span. So the thing about lighting that's really great is that you make the cue and then next, and then next, and then next, and then next, right? So we don't spend a lot of time, obviously, we spend some time refining it, but it's time to move on to get to the next, So it's always sort of like that aspect of like the very quick, adaptive problem solving has always been the thing that I've enjoyed about it. And definitely the problem solving portions of it. And by virtue of that, then that is the extension from which sort of like the production management side of it grew out of. Because it's all about solving problems. And ultimately, where this really came from was that as a lighting designer, I can't do my job until literally everybody else is done doing theirs, right? So until all the choreography is known, until the set is built and loaded in, until the costumes, for the most part, until the costumes are at least known, and you know, like the work that the actors or the dancers have been doing over the course of months, I then have to do basically a similar amount of work, but over the course of like 2 days. So it's a super condensed amount of time to try to get everything done, which means that if there's anything holding up that process, it bites into my time as a designer, which is why for like that's really how I became a production manager and sort of a problem solver to a greater extent, was to just be able ultimately to be able to score more time to do my job, right? Because if something's getting in the way, and holding up the technical process, the design process, or the production process, I mean, the doors, you know, the project will open no matter what on Friday at 7 p.m. And it doesn't matter if you're ready or not, it's going to happen, right? Like that's the magic of live performance. So, you know, well, and you need to like sort of like make the best product you can do. So
I like the fact that you like the high speed, the fast pace of your work, because I remember, if you will allow me to share our story, I remember many times when we were doing lighting cues and there was musical accents, and I would say, hey, let's do a lighting cue on every musical accent. But I remember your reaction being a little bit different, and you didn't like that.
Well,
like one more musical accent, Rebecca. But now that I know that was fast paced, you must have loved it.
I will say that when we were doing, I think it was like Enron, right? Like to go way back in the time machine now. That one had, I think, like that. How long was that piece? That piece was like an hour and 20 minutes, maybe.
I think it was an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there were like 400 or 500 light cues in it, which is like a bananas number, right? And I remember, and I do remember. I mean, hitting every beat. I mean,
and you got it done by Friday at 7.
Because we had to, yes.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about right now, I had the chance to work with Josh as a lighting designer for the productions that Rebecca Davis Dance Company did in Philadelphia. And one of the strongest memories I have of that time is exactly what you're saying, Josh, which is this idea of problem solving. And that's why we always considered you such a core member of the team, is because in those final days when you're trying to pull it together, like the entire project, you want people on your team who don't just give up, but try to solve the problems. And that's like, I think, why I've tried to pull you into every phase of my work since then.
But I mean, I think that that's true, you know, I mean, to this day, right? Even as we discover new challenges and things that, to be honest, we probably could not even dream, challenges that we couldn't begin to comprehend or like dream about, you know, 15 years ago when you and I met, right? It's process-wise, it's that same idea. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I, you know, like that part of it hasn't changed at all. I mean, obviously what the problems are have changed radically, and in this year, and in ways nobody could have possibly ever expected.
And so therefore, we'll ask you to kind of go with us a little bit, Josh, to make use of these excellent problem solving skills. I know right now in Philadelphia, well, I mean, not just Philadelphia, but we'll talk about Philadelphia since it's so near to both of our hearts. The arts are really in a struggling place right now. I mean, of course, for all of COVID, that's been the case. But now going back into shutdown, that's kind of really like emphasizing the hurt on the artists. But at the same time, there's this issue of public health and safety. And I know there's really strong voices kind of on all sides of this conversation happening in Philly right now. Maybe share with us a little bit more, especially for those of our audience members who are not so familiar with Philadelphia and the power of the arts in the community.
Sure. So in Philadelphia, arts are actually one of the major drivers of the economy here. I mean, I would argue that maybe New York is probably the only place where arts are a greater driver of the economy potentially. Philly is at the end of the day, even though Philadelphia is a city of 1.7 million people, it's really a small town. And all the artists here everybody knows everybody else. And I do mean that. And it's across the theater world, the dance world,
Music.
yeah, music, even fine arts to a
Mhm.
large extent. So when the shutdown happened, I mean, obviously all the theaters closed, and even things like the summer productions that would happen normally outside, all of those were shut down. There have been spaces that have been dark and just totally, and nobody can get in, right?
Mhm.
Um, and obviously, like, this has been very true in a lot of other places. Um, in my other life, in my other job, I'm a production entertainment designer for a large events company. And we spent the summer trying to cobble together like drive-in theaters, drive-in concerts, uh, all kinds of different things, many of which were immediately and summarily shut down by the city.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. So
Oh,
we were
wow.
gonna do, yeah, we were gonna do multiple events actually at the Wells Fargo. The Wells Fargo is where the Philadelphia professional basketball team and ice hockey team play. And we were going to do a couple things there that were promptly shut down by the mayor based on new restrictions that were coming in as the COVID threat evolved. Um, so that was disappointing. But like again, like you adapt, right?
Yes.
So uh, that's been that's been the challenge, and then trying to get a handle on when it's gonna come back,
Yeah.
and sort of like what are the rules when we do finally come back. I mean, I get the feeling like come spring, between the vaccine starting to roll out and people sort of having like a better handle on the what the deal is and what we actually need to do versus sort of the kabuki theater of health, right? Like, I'm gonna sanitize every surface, but that doesn't do anything, right? Just wear the mask, and that gets you really far to where you need to be reasonably safely. Um, it's I feel if we can make it through the winter, I think we're going to be okay in the spring. And I do mean that sincerely. And I say that also based on all the political activity and the protest activity that happened around Philadelphia, leading up to the election and with the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, I was one of the people down on the Parkway in May. I think there were like 30,000 people down there, and there was no big outbreak after that.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
but like I'm in, excuse me, down on the Parkway, everybody had like 10 or 12 feet around them, and nobody was packed in so tight, right? So it proved that you can still gather tens of thousands of people in one very big space, as long as they're responsible, right? And I think like that's a big part of it, is that everybody needs to take responsibility, and the responsibility isn't just for yourself. You're doing it for the people around you, right? So, and to an extent, I feel like that is sort of that's a that's a real shift in thought that
That's a good.
some places are better at adapting to than others.
Well, one of the places that's really good at adapting to it and following rules is Rwanda. So, as you know, Josh, Rwanda is considered one of the countries around the world that's done the best job containing the outbreak of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And for MindLeaps countries, actually almost all of the countries are back open and running. Kids are back in school with safety measures. Dance classes are happening, though socially distanced with masks, but there's like a huge kind of level of activity that's been lifted up again in the last couple of months in some of these African countries.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be very pleased to know that Rwanda is one of them. I wonder if you can like reach back into your memory bank one more time, our time machine, and see if you would share with us maybe a couple of experiences or memories or reasons how you ended up in Rwanda as a lighting designer in Philadelphia.
How I ended up there. So, we had wrapped up. I think Enron was no. There was Brave New World. That was the
Brave
last
New
one.
World was the last,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And we had wrapped it up, and you'd said that you were going to start MindLeaps and that you were done with the dance company. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I got it from Darfur and all the work that we had done with that. But then, yeah, that's a pretty epic leap for anybody to make. To go from I'm going to be a choreographer to I'm going to save children half a world away.
Sure. And you want to join me?
Right. I was like, yeah, of course. That sounds amazing.
Sounds like I would need a problem solver on the team.
Indeed. And I mean, I remember, I'm old, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I mean, I remember when the genocide happened, actively, when I was a teenager. I guess it was like 14 or 15 at the time. So it was, I was cognizant of it, right? Yeah. And then to go there, I remember telling my family about it, and my parents thought I was nuts. And they were, well, it was fun. I mean, I'd been to Africa once before to visit a friend who was in Peace Corps in Gambia. So that was my prior experience with Africa. Gambia and Rwanda are night from each other. They're very radically different places. Not just, I mean, it's sort of like in all respects, right? Like the geography is different. The government is very different. The socioeconomic deal is different. The corruption is different in that there's none of it in Rwanda, and you had to bribe everybody in Gambia. But you know, I told my wife, and she was like, yeah, that's like, she was very supportive of it. And yeah, you know, I got on the plane, and I landed. I think I was there for 2 weeks. And the things that I remember, I mean, I remember there was this feeling, this like electric feeling of in the air that sort of anything was possible there. And all these buildings just going up all over the place. And there wasn't, I mean, like, yes, there was poverty there, but there was entrepreneurship all over the place. And everybody, you know, I mean, like little shops on the corner, the motor drivers, I mean, sort of like all of it. And it's just this like electric kinetic sort of like energy just in the air, which I loved. And then the energy and excitement from the kids was just outstanding. I mean, I blogged about it at the time a little bit. I suppose that website's still up somewhere.
Let's post it. Yeah.
And you know, and the team that was there, they were so gracious and amazing, especially for this. I'm not bendy. I'm not a dancer. I'm not
yet.
But yeah, I mean, but you know, they were all very they were so open. And I mean, I remember having Jen translate for my classes. And I didn't know if he had really done a lot of that beforehand. And I was definitely using, I mean, I remember using language that sort of like terms, decrepit, right?
Decrepit was definitely a memorable one.
Where, you know, where like they wouldn't understand, and then Jen would sort of look at me and I'd look back at Jen, and it like there was almost sort of like this like little comedy routine going on between the two of us. But then also like being able to teach not just the kids, but there was that the older section, and sort of like, you know, the differences between the two of them. I mean, I will say, like, one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was the questions that the kids asked. So we were sort of using lighting as a hook for science, really, especially with the younger ones at the end of the day. And the questions they were asking, so like we would teach the class, and then at the end of class, I would say, okay, who has questions about anything, any topic, didn't matter. And they would ask these questions about, like, how does electricity get made? It's like, well, I know how it's made where I live, but I will find out how it's made here. And then I would come back the next day, and I would use the amazing internet connection at the
Eden Hotel.
Yeah, at the Eden, right? It was like the slowest dial-up ever. And I would like figure out how it was made, and then I would bring back the answer. And I mean, how does the biogas toilet work? I was like, what the hell is a biogas toilet? I don't know. But now I know. It's kind of gross. Is how it works.
It's a problem solved.
Look, yeah, problem solved. So that was, you know, that was amazing. And then, you know, obviously, like, sort of the other thing about Rwanda specifically when I was there was it was sort of like, so I'm Jewish, so I grew up with a strong knowledge of the Holocaust, right? Like, you can't not be an American Jew like without that, right? So so there's an interesting parallel's the wrong word, but there's an interesting tie that binds there between the genocide in Rwanda and the Holocaust. And to go to like to Niamata and experience that was, I mean, it was heavy, right? And I remember being there with Bashir, who was new to MindLeaps at the time, and I mean, to see the clothes, and then I was, I mean, obviously it's heavy, right? And this idea that they're sort of like, they've done such a good job of not of getting past it, but of surviving and of evolving. And it's not like, yes, it is omnipresent in the country, but it's not what defines them at all, right?
That's so
and
true.
That, I think, is what makes Rwanda such an amazing place to be. And it makes the people there so genuine and so so kind, because they're not hung up on this, right? And there's this idea that like they want to move forward and that everybody's trying to make this progression forward. And I think that is what drives forward all of this, all of that, like sort of like electric,
that
energy that I was talking about in the beginning, right? So
it's really eloquently put, the way that you kind of try to put the different ideas together. And so then you understand well why I could go to Rwanda and then come back to Philadelphia and be like, you know what? I think we can start an NGO. Like, I think I got some of that kinetic energy on me, and it's like, of course that's possible, right?
Yeah, no, and I mean, I do remember having a conversation with you early on where you were you were saying that you wanted to go here, and you wanted to go here, and you wanted to go there, and you wanted to go there, and I said, Rebecca, I know you're trying to save everybody, but like we need to focus in on like what is the good that we can do, and like where, by concentrating in like one or two or three or four spots, we can affect more change, right? And I feel like that's definitely the direction that MindLeaps has gone in. And I feel that, like seeing like Moise and like when he passes his messages to me, I mean, I cannot tell you how much that fills my heart with joy, and how astoundingly proud I am of him and the journey that he's taken with his life. I mean, he was just like
our little general.
Yeah, like little saucy little general, right? And it's so amazing. It's just, it is, it is, I mean, yes, it's obviously, it is an amazing experience, but not only that, but like to see the progress that MindLeaps has made sort of as an organization, like that has been, that has been a really cool thing to see over time. And then to be able to be a part of that, like has been amazing as well.
Well, so as our guests are listening, you can see that Josh has been totally influential on the early stages of MindLeaps and helping me organize my thoughts and make sure I arrive on time Friday at 7 p.m. for the NGO world. And so much so that now in kind of our next stages, as we've been drilling deeper into these countries where we've built such tremendous relationships with just incredible staff who are saving these kids' lives. We've come to West Africa, not quite Gambia yet, but getting closer.
Right, very close,
with
actually.
Conakry.
Yeah.
And as some of our strong followers knew, we're looking at building out our program in Guinea and moving into a bigger space. And my board of directors said to me, like, well, what's your plan, Rebecca? And my plan was to call you, Josh. So tell us a little bit about this new endeavor.
So we are working on designing a space, a permanent home, we hope, in Guinea, that will be able to be a studio space that will allow the sort of the aerial aspects of the dance program to flourish, and to do so in a safe manner, and as well as being able to act as an education space. It has been eye-opening to learn sort of like what the differences are between Guinea and Rwanda. And I mean, like a thing to remember is that people have been living in Africa forever, right? So
relate to the game.
Right. So, like there's no, so like finding property there's like challenges you just don't think about, right? So like living in America, we have zillions of acres of land. It's endless, right? Like you go out west and it never ends. And then there's Alaska, which is the size of like half the size of the rest of the country onto itself again. And there's nothing there but moose. So,
you're making me feel Canadian.
Right, but actually that's very similar, right? So it's the same geography, but in Africa that's very different because there have been people who've been living there forever and ever and ever. So where is the land that people can grow on, can build on? That's a challenge, right? And then what is the nature of the building there? I mean, that whole process, when we did the dance floor in Rwanda, I mean, just like getting a sprung floor there, sort of like as a concept, that was a challenge. I mean, I remember getting the Marley there. They didn't know how to tax it. They're like, what is this material? I mean, sort of like all these things that you would never think about here, become these challenges there. But they're all things that can be overcome, right? It's just about thinking sort of like creatively, how do we do it? So going back to Guinea. So one of the thoughts we have now is, instead of building like a big, like sort of like masonry structure, is now we're looking at a steel building, or some people might call it like a post building or a barn, if you will. But it's all made out of metal, so it goes up very easily, and it requires much less infrastructure behind it. And the trick behind this is that one of the things that we need out of a dance studio is we need a lot of open space without any columns in the middle of it, because we can't be flying dancers into like a support beam, right? You can't
ideally not.
No, ideally not. So how do we make a big open space that is safe? And steel is a great way to do that. They're economical, and so that's sort of like what we're looking at. And then we can like sort of like almost like Legos. You can kind of like click the buildings together, if you will. We'll see, right? So like I think that's really exciting. I feel that when we get once we tackle sort of like the next couple of hurdles that we're sort of dealing with right now, I feel that once we get the ball in motion, it's going to move really fast. And that is, again, like that's exciting to me because I get bored easily. And, it's this idea of like, go, 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 go. So I'm, definitely looking forward to that phase. And again, and even like meeting the team in Guinea over Zoom calls has been fantastic. I mean, there's such a dedicated crew there, and the work they're doing is so fastidious, and they're doing like such a great job in very, very difficult circumstances. So a serious kudos to them for the work that they've done there so far.
And serious kudos to you too. I remember after you designed this whole building, then we were like, and is it okay if you make it movable too? It needs to move.
Right.
Right. And by the way, we have one more idea for the magical Josh.
But I mean, but like sort of this idea, but that's always sort of been the case, right? Oh, by the way, there's one more thing, there's one more cue, there's one more movement, there's one more beat. It's really 10 beats, right? There's like, again, more. Yeah, yes, more. Let's do it. So,
it sounds like you've got a bit of the Rwanda attitude, the kinetic side of you too.
I think so. I mean, I will say that it might be due to a lot of that I would argue is probably pent up demand from March when everything here stopped. So like.
Well, you have to at least maintain it until we finish the Guinea build.
I promise.
Josh, we could get lost on a lot of different stories and inside jokes here, but I want to make sure that our viewers hear one of the questions that I think is the coolest to ask you, which is for these young people who keep asking me, and I keep telling them they should ask people like you, how do you build a career that's really multifaceted? It's not just, oh, I'm going to be an actor, oh, I'm going to be a lighting designer, oh, I'm going to work in Africa. Like, you've done like so many different things and built all of these breadth of experiences, and you're still like building a multifaceted career. What would you tell to these young people who are wondering like how they can approach something like that that's not so singular?
Well, I mean, I would say never say no. and you never know what direction life's gonna take and what direction you're gonna go in. I mean, when I went to college, I was gonna be a history professor. I know, right? I mean, I have a degree in it. I don't use it that often, but it's there. And then, you know, a lighting designer, and now a production designer of a sort. But again, like you don't know what path you're going to go down. It's the idea that like you should, again, like the big thing that I found is always take time to explore the opportunities that are around, and don't think that you're not qualified to do something. You'd be surprised, right? So you're probably smarter than you give yourself credit for. And really, humans are infinitely adaptable.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why a dancer can't start an NGO, as an example. There's no reason why a future history teacher can't become a lighting designer and then teach kids in Africa, right?
And build buildings in Guinea.
Right, and then design buildings in Guinea. Humans have limitless potential, and you should accept that, and not just accept, but embrace that. It's an amazing thing that, you know, we've been granted this ability, so use it, right? And take care of your body, right? Because you're going to hit a certain point at about like your late 30s, early 40s, and like stuff's going to start to fall apart. And if you abuse yourself a lot when you're young, just don't do that, dancers.
Oh, my favorite part of this is that humans have limitless potential. I think, like, Josh, like right now with COVID, it's so easy for people to kind of just like throw up their hands and say like nothing is possible. But gosh, you're such a good reminder that that's just not true. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that when life gives you challenges, you should embrace them, and we should find ways to. Sometimes it's better to act like water than it is to act like a wall, right? And just go around it or go over it. Don't try to go through it. And maybe that's the way to adapt. So.
Oh my gosh! Now we need to translate that into Kinyarwanda.
Bashir, do it.
Josh, thank you so much for spending this time with us on Moments with MindLeaps. I could talk to you forever, but I thank you so much for letting me talk to you in front of our guests and let some of your wisdom trickle around our network and our friends. Thank you so much for being with us today.
No, thank you. Anytime. I'm always happy to do it. Take care.
I'm calling you for my next problem. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us. See you soon, Josh.